There once was an evil wizard who killed a king and his daughter and then transformed himself into the king and had his own daughter transform herself into the king's daughter. Before the king's replacement, a noble knight served his king well and completed a grand quest to save the king's daughter. After completing this quest, the knight put his armor and sword away and became the prince under the king. Years later, the prince became suspicious when the king's personality suddenly changed. The prince goes to the king's chambers to ask him what's wrong.
Hello, are you in? I guess not. I wonder where he went. This bookcase seems new. I wonder what he put in it. Oh!
The prince stumbles through the bookcase and into a small hallway going downwards. He begins walking down the long hall until he reaches a staircase going into a chasm. Inside, he sees a wizard working on something below. The king's daughter walks towards him and shimmers and becomes the wizard's daughter.
What is it now? Can't you see I'm almost finished with these plans?
You shouldn't stay here too long. You never know who might get suspicious and come looking for you.
These plans are nearly complete, and you're telling me to keep this idiotic ruse up for longer? We're so close to taking this kingdom for ourselves.
Well, take a break to see these idiotic people that admire you. You don't know when they'll get jumpy.
Fine. I'll be up in a minute.
The prince quickly goes back up the staircase and leaves for the library in the castle. He begins his research on the destruction of wizards. He spends many days reading about wizards, battles, and what was used to kill them. He learned of special poisons used to kill wizards, which only activates when a magical song is played on a specific instrument. The prince drew out a long map and plan on how to get these items. He packs provisions in his research, gathers his old armor and sword, and settles up on his horse. He finds his way to a town where a bard is buried with his instrument. The knight reaches this town and finds a chained tomb. He removes the chains, and inside are many of the undead. He fights his way down into the tomb, finding scraps of papers relating to necromancers and creating undead. He reaches the bottom and finds the body of the bard along with the body of the necromancer. He retrieves the lute, the instrument he reaches in the library. He leaves the tomb in the town and sees on his map that he is quite close to the alchemist.
Hello, is anyone here? I'm looking for an alchemist.
The knight sees a note left below the door. It reads,
I've gone to a cave to search for herbs and fungus. If it's important, you can find me nearby in the east.
The knight rides east until he reaches a cave. The alchemist is nowhere to be found.
Hello, are you in there? I've come to ask you about something.
Suddenly, a large three-headed dog jumps out of the cave. The knight jumps backwards and draws his sword. Behind the dog, the alchemist is yelling,
Help me! Take this! It will help you!
The alchemist throws the knight a jar of an unknown liquid.
What do I do with this?
Throw it on the dog!
The knight hurls the jar at the dog, breaking it on the dog's shoulder and splashing the liquid on it. The dog begins to shrink and the large collar falls off its neck. The knight grabs the collar, pulls it away, and slays the dog.
Thank you for saving me. What do you need me for?
I'm looking for a special poison that kills wizards and I needed your help.
That dog's collar contains small bottles of many potions and poisons. If you tell me which ones you think it is, I'll identify it, and you can return it in a few days to retrieve it.
I have these notes that tell me what the poison might look like.
The knight takes the collar and pulls out 3 bottles of similar-looking liquids. He hands them to the alchemist.
These are the ones it could be, so please identify which one it is. Here are the notes for the poison.
Thank you. I'll have your poison in about 4 days. Return to me then, and you'll have your poison.
With the loot found and the poison being identified, the knight travels to the kingdom that is famous for its magical music and long-lived kings. He discovers that the kingdom is in ruins, and the castle is crumbling. He wanders inside until he finds a secret door behind the ancient kingdom's thrones. He wanders inside into a large circular room with a single skylight in the middle. The light is shining on a book lying on a table in the center of the room. He reaches it and realizes it is a book of old songs used in the kingdom. He looks through the book until he finds the song he's searching for. He picked up the book only to have the table clunk and shudder. The door begins to close, and large spikes begin emerging from the walls. The knight realizes that the only way out is through the open skylight, so he runs towards the wall. He grabs the spikes and quickly climbs up towards the skylight. His leg gets caught in a spike. He pulls himself free and continues climbing. He reaches the top and climbs out. He realizes that he was under a well behind the castle. The knight walks to his horse, packs the book, and rides back to the kingdom. The knight, now at home with the required items, begins to play out how he will take out the wizard. He remembers that the king's birthday is coming up, so he sets up for that day.
Here, I brought you this lute and this music.
Thank you. When shall I play?
As soon as the toast ends, I want you to play what's written there. No matter what happens, I want you to play.
That sounds a bit strange, but okay.
The prince moves back into the kitchen and hands the cook the vial of poison.
Put this liquid into the king's drink. It's a special potion for good health.
The cook agrees and pours the contents into the drink. The prince comes back out into the hall and is met by the princess.
What are you up to?
I'm setting up for your father's birthday. He's a grand king and deserves an even grander party.
You're right. He's a great king and a great father.
The prince and the princess walk back to the party, and the prince watches as the drinks are served. He takes his drink and raises it.
To the king, may he live a long, healthy life.
The crowd raises their glasses and drink. The king holds his glass up high and takes a long drink. As he finishes, his eyes light up. He stares directly at the prince, burning with anger. The prince points to the bard and he begins playing. The king falls to his knees and shimmers to reveal himself as a wizard. The wizard yells in pain and falls over.
This wizard killed and replaced the king years ago. He's been conspiring with his daughter to take over.
The wizard disintegrates, leaving behind a pile of ash and smoke. The princess stands up and runs out of the hall. Then the prince stands and runs after her. He chases her out of the castle into the edge of the forest.
Stop! I just want to talk to you.
You will pay for this. I will come back and finish what my father and I started.
She turns and sprints into the forest. The prince calls out once more and turns back to the castle. He walks back and tells everyone that the wizard's daughter is gone and to not worry anymore. Days later, the prince is crowned king in the hall of the grand court.